And I'm David DeGuzman. Houston and Dallas are the desired destinations for the UVA men and Virginia Tech women, respectively. And over the next half hour, we'll be looking back at some of the memorable moments the month of March has already produced while looking ahead to the rest of the postseason. Well, moments ago, Virginia Tech women's basketball learning that they will be a #1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Another first for this program this season. This tragedy touching many teams and lives here in the Commonwealth and across the country. You mentioned how the room is buzzing. Let me just give you some context as to where I am. I'm on the edge of Radio Row. This is where a lot of the athletes and coaches funnel on through doing interviews with radio stations from various ACC markets. The drivers will take what they learned here in testing this week in hopes that it'll pay off when they come back here in late October for the penultimate race of the Cup Series season. The news became official earlier tonight as Hugh Freeze returns to the SEC after 4 seasons at Liberty, the school that hired him after he resigned from the top position at Ole Miss for personal misconduct. And that second chance for Freeze led to plenty of firsts for the Flames. West Virginia will be by far the most competitive and toughest team that Brent Pry has faced so far in his short tenure as head coach. And Grant Wells, a native of Charleston, West Virginia, he says that he's been looking forward to this game for quite some time. Well, we're expecting capacity crowds for the second straight weekend to fill these stands here in Blacksburg, but among the fans will be a young super fan who's inspired the Hokies just as much, if not more, than they've inspired him. Well, remember, this week began with Virginia Tech visiting the 9/11 Memorial and Museum, getting perspective on one of the nation's darkest days. But in 2008, it was the Yankees helping the Hokies out in the wake of one of the school's toughest times. A baseball game, a simple gesture, linking forever Blacksburg with New York.
It's hard to really ever forget. I can say for myself, having been on campus in '07 and the starting pitcher a year later in '08, it's a common conversation for me, and it's hard, but I appreciate it because it kind of helps speak to, for me, the definition of being a Hokie.
In the aftermath of the Virginia Tech school shooting that claimed 32 lives, Andrew Wells knew that baseball would be part of the healing process.
We kind of felt like we were part of that catalyst, part of that movement to bring the community together, to bring campus together, to provide everyone kind of a distraction.
But it was the New York Yankees that lent a hand when Blacksburg needed it the most.
Steinbrenner, as we learned, had reached out to our athletics department, again, pretty quickly and said, hey, we want to be a part of this healing process. We're going to send our guys to play your guys. It's really hard to explain what it meant to me, but I recognized then, and I can fully appreciate now, it wasn't about me. It wasn't about our baseball program. It was about this campus, this community.
Less than a year after that dark day, the Yankees made the trip to the New River Valley to visit the April 16 Memorial and play an exhibition against the Virginia Tech baseball team at English Field. Yankees.
I'll never forget towing that rubber. I put my head down, and as I looked up, it was me and Johnny Damon, head to head.
Wells, a left-handed pitcher, made the start of a lifetime that no other Hokie had ever done before.
I faced, in order, Damon, Jeter, Abreu, A-Rod, and Giambi, and I gave up 1 unearned run. So I left the mound that day feeling pretty good. I felt like I'd pitched 20 innings walking off after that 1 inning of work.
The Yankees went on to win the 7-inning contest 11-0, but everyone knew the day had very little to do with baseball.
It was for the 32, and it was for the Hokies that we lost and for the tragic events that had taken place a year prior. And just an incredible gesture on behalf of the Yankees. That was the start of the Hokies-Yankees bond, because they did step up in a way that no one could have imagined. That day changed my life forever. Forever will be a Yankees fan.
In honor of what the Yankees have done for Virginia Tech over the years, the Hokies will be wearing the New York Yankees logo on a side of the helmets that they'll be wearing tomorrow at the Pinstripe Bowl. A neat gesture from the Hokies to say thank you to the New York Yankees. Well, starting tomorrow, the world's best track and field athletes will compete at the World Championships in Eugene, Oregon. Among the events contested will be the gravity-defying pole vault. Virginia Tech has produced a number of accomplished pole vaulters over the years, but one athlete training in Blacksburg right now stands out because of what he wears on his head.
And when I'm about to go up for my jump, get on the runway, I put the chalk on my hands, put it down, clamp it, just to kind of let my body know we're getting into our habits, we're letting our body take over.
For Jake Spotswood, putting on a helmet is part of the routine before every fearless attempt at the pole vault. The story behind that helmet dates back to 2021, when the multi-event athlete competed for Alabama. There's not that many athletes who do pole vault who wear helmets. You do. Why is that?
Yeah. So at Alabama last year, I was pole vaulting at South Carolina as an indoor meet. And I think I just got a little too aggressive. I planted the pole and swung upside down to try and clear the bar, and the pole slips out of my hand. And I got knocked out in midair, fell down on the pit. I was knocked out. I was unconscious for about a minute and a half. Head busted open, the whole 9 yards. So got 8 staples in the local hospital in Columbia.
That must have been really scary, though. I mean, that must, like, for a guy who has no fear of heights, who's been pole vaulting for basically all his life, to have that happen to you, were you kind of shaken by that experience a lot? Or?
I think it was more shock at the point that it happened, because the pole hits you in the head. I saw a flash. I wake up a little later, and I remember telling the trainers, I was like, oh, let me jump again, I want to win.
2 weeks later, Spotswood was back competing.
I decided to put the helmet on and said, I don't want this to happen again. I'm not missing practice. I don't want to deal with that.
At the end of the year, he made another risky leap, transferring from Alabama to Virginia Tech.
There was a lot of coaching changes, not a lot of focus on my event in particular, and they knew it too. They kind of helped me find the university that was a little better fit for me.
Now, under the direction of veteran head coach Bob Phillips, Spotswood has vaulted to new heights, helping to set school records in the indoor heptathlon and outdoor decathlon.
It's been a major blessing coming to Virginia Tech. Like, the coaching staff, the training staff, everybody's just taken such good care of me and my teammates, and it's a great feeling to know that you're part of a family and everyone's trying to take care of you.
And with his helmet, Spotswood has his head in the right place.
Always have fun, because at the end of the day, if you're not having fun, it's not going to go where you want it to go. I still feel like a kid when I come out here, you know, so it's great.
Jake's actually recovering from a leg injury he suffered during the outdoor season, but he'll be back for his final year in 2023. And if you're wondering, that is a skateboard helmet that he is wearing, because he used to skateboard too.
Interesting.
So,
I also noticed you were a little overdressed.
it was actually really hot in there at indoor track. I calculated how hot it would be, hence why some athletes just weren't wearing any shirts.
Thank you, David. I look forward to following along.
No, WFXR Sports.
Welcome to Greensboro, where the confetti fell, but it wasn't for the University of Virginia. I'm Dave DeGuzman. It's Duke taking home the ACC tournament title, marking the 22nd in program history. Quite a feat, and it comes after a 59-49 win over the Cavaliers, where Virginia just struggled offensively. Let's take a look at some of the highlights. John Shire trying to guide Duke to the championship in his first season at the helm. Virginia seeking its first ACC title since 2018. They've never done it as a 2 seed, and this had the atmosphere of a big-time contest here in Greensboro. But it was Duke that made their shots early. Kyle Filipowski hitting the long-range 3, putting the Blue Devils up 11-5, and he was just getting started. Toward the end of the first half, off the miss, Filipowski beats Caden Shedrick to the rebound and gets the kiss off the window to give Duke an 11-point lead. Virginia trailing by 7 at the half. After the break, UVA trying to get some life into its offense. Armand Franklin finding Jaden Gardner, who was ready to throw it down, and that kept the Cavs within single digits. Moments later, Isaac McNeely open for three, and he had 10 points for UVA. Virginia down 38-32 at that point, but Duke's response was massive. Tyrese Proctor, hello from the outside on the wing. That put the momentum back in Duke's favor, and then turning defense into offense. Filipowski with the steal brings it the other way to put an exclamation point on this one. He had 20 points and 10 rebounds on his way to becoming the tournament MVP, as Duke does what they couldn't do last year against Virginia Tech in Brooklyn. Blue Devils win the ACC crown here in Greensboro over UVA, 59-49 the final.
Man, it's just frustrating, and defense kept us in it for most of the game, I thought. To not be able to convert on the other end, and then we made some runs and just couldn't crack it open tonight. So
I knew we weren't going to ever give up. I think they got as much as like a 14 or 15 point lead, but I knew we weren't going to give up, and we just kept fighting and fighting. Like I said, our defense kept us in the game. Shots weren't falling like they had been the past 2 games, but that's going to happen, and when that happens, our defense is what's going to keep us in the game. But I'm really proud with our effort tonight.
Virginia limited to just 33% shooting, going 4 for 17 from beyond the arc. And credit John Shire, who saw his Blue Devils lead from start to finish as Duke lifts its first ACC tournament title since 2019. Virginia will now try to hit the reset button ahead of the NCAA tournament. The brackets will be revealed on Sunday night. But for now, that will do it here for our coverage of the ACC tournament in Greensboro. Now let's send it over to Jermaine Farrell, who's covering the final day of the VHSL State Championships in Richmond. Before we go, even with plenty of action left, some final thoughts on this final Friday of the Tokyo Summer Games. Every Olympics is like a postcard. It's a snapshot of a time and a place in history. These games will forever be known as the Pandemic Games, the first ever to be postponed for a year and taking place against the backdrop of a state of emergency in the city of Tokyo. The Olympic cauldron lit amid a chorus of protests and calls to cancel an event that organizers were determined to deliver. Indeed, these were the games unlike any other before it. No fans in the stands, no friends or family or that support system athletes relied on just to get them to Tokyo, where masks, COVID tests, and soft quarantines made just as much headlines as the competition itself. There are questions on whether it was all worth it, and time will tell. But as these games cross the finish line, you don't have to look past the faces of the athletes that took part to answer that question with a resounding yes. There were a total of 50 athletes with connections to the Commonwealth at these Tokyo Olympics, each with a unique journey, but all tied together by the pandemic we've all endured. From the quartet of UVA swimmers that made the podium, part of a youth movement in American swimming, to the Canadian duo whose golden success in rowing was rooted in Charlottesville. We saw redemption on the pitch and gratitude on the track. The vast majority of these athletes did not bring home a medal at all, but all have memories to last a lifetime. Nothing about these games stuck to the original script we had envisioned, but they were built to be the lights at the end of the tunnel of what we as humanity have been through for the last year and a half. We may still be in that tunnel, but for these 17 days, the athletes offered something we all needed, a sense of hope. All right, well, that'll do it for this edition of Today in Tokyo. One final note, a special thanks to our Next Star team of reporters on the ground in Tokyo, working hard and providing the stories and insight daily through these games. And also a thank you to the men and women behind the scenes, setting up the cameras, punching the buttons, and running the prompter. It's a job they do every day, but, thank you goes a long way.